how you discovered basketball and kind of how you fell in love with the game to get to where you are right now.
Well, love of basketball came from my dad. He played Division II at Mankato State in Minnesota. So ever since I was little, I had a ball in my hand. I think like one of my first like real birthday presents was like a mini Tykes hoop. And a funny story about that is I'd never use like the little ball that was supposed to go with it. I'd only use like the full size men's ball. It would barely go in, and then I'd cry when it wouldn't go in. So, yeah, so I was all things basketball. I think my first like organized thing was probably like sixth grade. I went to like some like local team thing, not sixth grade, when I was 6 years old in first grade.
Wow.
And just loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me, like, it's got to be tough for a kid growing up. And obviously, I mean, you were obviously a pretty tall kid growing up and you were really good at the game to get to where you are right now, right? So it's got to be hard for kids at that young of an age to kind of deal with the pressure and the hype that comes around with being a basketball star.
Oh, definitely. I think so I was just kind of a good kid in the area. And so probably my sophomore years when I got a little notoriety, going into my freshman year of high school, I was only 6 feet tall and I shot up to like 6'5" at the end of the year.
It's a hell of a growth spurt.
Yeah. I grew like 2 more inches. So my sophomore year, I was 6'7", had some skills, got on a good AAU team. So I had some notoriety that way, and some D1 teams started like sniffing around, getting involved. And we had a really good team. I moved schools. And so there was kind of like a whole thing like, oh, like he's this, he's that, like he's traitor, all this stuff. And so like, that was kind of something that was hard to block out. But at the end of the day, that was just noise. But then my junior and senior year, I got, so much hate from the fans. I felt a lot of pressure because I was not only playing for, oh, that's my alarm to start. I wasn't only playing for, win some games when I try to win a state title, but I was also playing, to get, a bigger offer to go to my dream school at Iowa. Mm-hmm. And so every crowd, they'd always, chant crazy stuff at me and try to, throw me off my game. And there was a point, I think my junior year, because that was like the year I was the most heavily recruited because I committed before my senior year. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't sleep before games. Like I'd be too worked up. I have to like take like 2 melatonin and a Tylenol PM just to get to bed because I was so amped up.
Amped up in a good or in a bad way?
I don't know. I like to think it was good. I was just like too excited to play. I mean, I didn't worry too much about it. I mean, it kind of is what it is. It's something like if you're going to get into the sports profession, you got to have thick skin. You can't just, be ho-hum about everything that someone calls you a name in the stands.
Yeah. And when you said the fans were heckling you, was that just like the team that you had played for previously, or was it every team around the league?
Oh, every away place we played, I heard all sorts of stuff. And it wasn't just about moving schools. It was like, I remember like one team specifically, they would like chant about my mom every time that we played them. And like they would have no connection to my mom. They would just like, they just knew my mom's name because she worked at the school, and they would just yell stuff about my mom. And I was just like, come on.
Yeah. There's obviously like trash talk in sports. It's part of the game, but then when it gets personal, that's kind of when it gets too far, right? And being at such a young age and being exposed to that, did you kind of deal with that on your own just by going through the experience of it and learning to deal with it? Or were there people that you kind of reached out to or relied on to kind of block that stuff out?
So I was really fortunate. In high school, I went to school with, I think, 4 or 5 fellow Division I athletes. And in Iowa, we have pretty small schools. Like my graduating class was just over 100. So I was really fortunate to have other people who were, kind of stars in their respective area. And we kind of all leaned on each other a little bit because, whether it was football, basketball, or volleyball, we all kind of heard the same things. We all got the same things. And so I kind of almost like, that was good to just have some people that knew what you're going through. Someone you can, be an ear for, someone that can be an ear for you. I didn't really have, so that was a good support system, but at Iowa, it was, it gets ramped up. But at the same time, there you have 16 guys and, all the athletes, and all the athletes are going through it. And so it's like, it almost becomes kind of a joke there. Like, oh, like this person actually said something funny. Like, and so like you got to show all your teammates and stuff that then.
Yeah. And you mentioned that obviously you played at Iowa for a number of years, your dream school, and growing up an Iowa Hawkeye fan. How much kind of pressure did you feel playing, whether it was like freshman, sophomore, or junior before you committed to Iowa? How much pressure did you feel, like playing for, a chance to get recruited by that team?
Yeah, no, I felt a lot of pressure, actually so much pressure so that I kind of found out that I was going to get offered my junior year in the middle of the season. And Coach McCaffrey came out to the game, and I had the worst game of my career, like the worst game ever. And I ended up not getting an offer, and like they kind of went quiet for a little while because it was that bad. And so I had to build my stock back up, and they had assistants come out to 2 other games that year, and I really killed it, kind of a second chance thing. And I had a huge summer AAU, and they ended up offering me then. But yeah, that first time that Coach McCaffrey came to see me play, I was just nervous I was so nervous. I don't know. That was bad.
Yeah. You mentioned kind of had a bad game there. And I think for a lot of like kids in high school or prep or whatever it is, when they have a bad game, they kind of shut down after the game, right? They don't want to talk about it. They just kind of want to forget about it. But how did you kind of deal with, I guess, dealing with the adversity of having a bad game and picking yourself back up?
Well, so I also had, like I said, we had 4 or 5 Division I athletes at our school. I had another one that played Division I basketball on my high school team, and 2 that played Division I football were also on that same team. And so, like, I had a bad game, and credit to them, they're like, "All right, we're gonna pick you up." And the next game, I think, like, I went out and had, I don't know, probably 36 and 20 or something. It's like a huge game, just like, I don't know, it's just like a bad taste in my mouth. I just needed to go and prove myself that I am like who I am, and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's crazy how much like team chemistry plays a role in the performance of not only a player, but a team as well. Like obviously your AAU team, you guys seem like a tight-knit group, and you guys probably fed off that. And the same at Iowa, when you have guys that are around each other, every day for 4 or 5 months out of the year playing basketball, kind of that team chemistry that you guys build around each other, it only, adds to the on-ice or on-court performance. Yeah. I always think back to like different hockey or football examples of stuff of teams that on paper are the most talented, but they might not perform that way. And I wonder how much of it is due to like the mental side of the game or team chemistry and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, team chemistry is huge. Like if you've, I've been fortunate enough to be on some really good teams and like one poor team, but so I got to see, the 2 extremes of team chemistry. And when you're winning, that can cover a lot of stuff, but when you're winning and you have team chemistry, it's a totally different feeling.
Yeah. After you got your commitment letter from Iowa and you committed there, did a lot of that pressure kind of get relieved? And when you were playing your AAU ball after that, or were you still feeling a lot of that anxiety?
I think to some extent late in my senior year, it kind of picked up because I was in I think like a 6-person class coming into Iowa, and 3 of us we're all like in the same state. We all played in the same AAU program. So like we're all friends, but like after every game, there'd be stuff all over Twitter like, oh, so like this Iowa commit did this tonight. This Iowa commit did this tonight. This Iowa commit did this tonight. And so it was, it was more than just, like 2,000 people that were in the stands. It was everyone on Twitter. Everyone's trying to check out your box score. Everyone's trying to, get film of you and see stuff. And, so my senior year, I definitely had more of a chip on my shoulder. I felt like I had to prove myself that I was worthy of that title. I felt like I had to go earn that every game. So I came, with an extra chip on my shoulder that whole year.
Yeah. I'm kind of like thinking back to myself, like growing up around that age, like 15, 16. Full disclosure, I'm an Ohio State Buckeye fan. So if I had the chance to go play for the Buckeyes, I would walk into the arena and not even be able to say a word. I'd be so like shell shocked at everything. What was it like for you, the feelings and emotions that you felt like the first time you got to campus as an Iowa Hawkeye basketball player?
Man, the first time I knew it was like legit was when I put on the jersey for the first time. Like I saw the jersey with my last name on it. I had my locker, and I was geeked. I was just like it's a sense of like I made it. You know what I'm saying? I know we have a lot of guys, a lot of in-state dudes that it's their dream to play for Iowa, and so it's definitely special, especially going through the years like my junior year or my senior year when we bring in a kid from Iowa and it's his dream, and you see the first time that the jerseys come out and you see the look on their face. It definitely brings it all back to the first time you saw your jersey. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's funny how life's full circle like that, where you started there your freshman year. There's probably guys that mentored you and were that kind of leaders in the team, right? And now you kind of took that approach the last year.
Yeah, definitely. A guy who was a big time leader for me was Nicholas Bear and Peter Jock. Those are two guys that really set the foundation. They were ultimate leaders. Pete was a big time gamer, big time scorer. Give me the ball, I'll get it done. And Bear was such a good. It doesn't matter what it is, I'll do it. It doesn't matter if I need to score. It doesn't matter if I need to rebound, screen, get the ball to somebody else. I just want to win. And so those two guys were unbelievable leaders that I really look up to.
Yeah. Your last 2 years here at Iowa, you had more of a prominent role in the team. But I know the first 2 years, you kind of took more of a a bench role, I guess, so to say, not playing as many minutes as you did now. How did you balance kind of playing for your dream team, which is obviously a positive factor, but the negative factor of maybe not getting as many minutes as you were used to getting at AAU ball?
So my freshman year, I learned pretty quick that I wasn't going to be the guy. We had a really talented team, and it was my role to, play scout and be ready in case they needed me in a game. I really tried my best to embrace that role and go all out in scout team because if a scout has a bad practice, then the guys who are going to play can't have, their best practice, get prepared. And so I really took it upon myself to, try to never have a bad practice and, get the guys ready for whoever we were going to play because, I was at my dream school and I wanted to really win. And so I did everything I could to help us win, even though I wasn't going to be on the court that much.
Mm-hmm. I know there were, some chatter a couple years ago as well about the transfer portal and everything of you leaving Iowa to get some more playing time. I'm kind of curious how you kind of got through that decision-making process. Obviously, you ended up staying at Iowa and stuff, but for a lot of kids, it's got to be tempting. Maybe not so much for you because Iowa was your dream school and you're ready to kind of fight for your place. But I think for a lot of kids out there, it's tempting to leave the school that they originally committed to go to somewhere else to get more minutes.
Well, I'll say it was very, very tempting for me. Especially after my sophomore year, I had 2 really bad concussions during the season.
Yeah.
And so I had to deal with that. And I came back from my second concussion. I played really well. I had multiple high scoring games for me at the time and really good performances. And I knew that I could do that. And we were going to have a loaded team the next year. And I was afraid that I was going to be stuck in the same spot. And there was multiple schools who were reaching out to me, telling me, if you ever decide to leave, you got a home here. We're going to give you the keys to the offense. You're going to be our guy. And that was a really tough decision. I mean, I could have went to probably 4 or 5 schools and put up 20 and 8 for the next 2 years and, really been the guy and played 30 minutes a game. But it is so hard to, leave what you love. I love Iowa basketball. I love the Iowa Hawkeyes. And that was a really hard decision, but I'm really glad that I stuck it out.
Was there any sort of process you kind of went through to come to that decision? Did you come with a pros and cons list? Did you talk to other people, other players and stuff? How did you reach that conclusion?
I'm super close with Jordan Bohannon. We've played basketball together for probably 7 years now. He's my roommate for the last 4. And, we've had a bunch of really difficult talks, whether it was, stuff that I was going through, stuff he was going through. He really, laid out some good points for me. I've laid out some good points for him when he was struggling with stuff. And, something he really told me was, what do you want to accomplish here? What's your dream? And it was, to go through it with, Jordan and Cordell and Riley and the guys that we came in with, because I played AAU with those guys for 2 years prior. So we already had a really good, strong relationship, and it was a dream we all had to go do this. And so I was going to stick it out. I would feel bad if I would kind of bailed on my brothers that way.
Yeah. It's another point of like how much team chemistry means. Obviously, if you left Iowa, went to another school, you'd be starting fresh kind of and having to make new relationships, new friendships and stuff. But it kind of, again, speaks to how much team chemistry plays a role in,
Definitely.
the life of an athlete.
Definitely.
The concussions you had, I mean, I haven't had a concussion myself. I know friends that have had one concussion and those were tough. Going through 2 concussions, I couldn't even imagine doing that. How hard was it to kind of sit on the sidelines? Because I've had to sit on the sidelines myself through sports for various injuries and stuff. And it's probably one of the hardest things I think athletes go through is sitting on the sidelines, not be able to participate in practice or games and help your team out. So how did you kind of mentally deal with staying on the sidelines for a bit?
All right, so my first concussion, it was like, I think it was the second Big Ten game of the year. And at that point we were playing the 2 prior and then a little more non-conference and then the 18 rest because it was a 20-game season. Mm-hmm. So it was the second Big Ten game of the year. And I kind of forced myself to come back early. And that was probably a bad decision on my part because we were going to play, if I came back as fast as I could, we were going to play Iowa State. And that's like the huge rivalry. It's bragging rights. It's, everyone calls it hate week because everyone in the state gets mad at each other. Everyone wears their Cyclone stuff, their Iowa stuff. And so there was no way I was going to miss that, but I came back a little too early. And I definitely was dizzy and stuff. And so after that, I kind of, sat out of a few more practices to make sure I was really ready for the rest of the season. And then my second one happened and that one was pretty bad. And I had to sit out for probably 3 weeks with that one. And with the protocol, like I'd have to, just jump through hoops, do certain workouts, pass certain tests to even, have a chance to play. And the most vivid thing that comes to me is we're about to play at Nebraska my sophomore year. And if I pass this last test, I got to play. And so it's like a brisk walk up their steps in the arena and then a jog that's about halfway around the arena.
Yeah.
And I got 2 reps in and I got extremely dizzy. I was about to throw up. My head was throbbing and I had to start all the way back from square one. And that was just mentally, that was so frustrating and fatiguing and disappointing because nobody can really see your injury. It's something that with a head injury, it's something only you see, only you feel, and really only you know you have from the outside looking in. And so I was sitting there on the sidelines feeling, like garbage while my guys are out there fighting, for their lives to win some games. And I knew I could have contributed more that year, but I just was sidelined with those 2 injuries.
Mm-hmm. Did you try to work on any part of like your mental game while you were kind of on the sidelines, or did you just try and, give your body and mind as much rest as possible?
So once my sensitivity to light died down with the concussions, I watched a ton of film with the coaches. Watched a ton of film. I wanted to stay up to date. I wasn't, skipping practice to, stay in a dark room. I was at practice, watching practice, making sure I knew all the stats, making sure I learned about other players, trying to soak up everything I could. And then from a physical standpoint, I shot a lot of free throws, got a lot better at free throws. In my career, I was a terrible free throw shooter. I was probably 50%, and I ended my career right at 80%. So there was a huge jump there, and I can kind of contribute that to having a banged up head.
Yeah. It's kind of like, when one thing gets thrown at you, there's different ways to attack it. Like just like right now, how we're all in this kind of self-isolation quarantine thing. Like a lot of people think just because they can't get to the gym or the court or the rink, whatever it is, they can't work on their game. But there's so many, like you said, studying film. There's so many film highlights on YouTube and stuff people can watch. Or just, I've been reading a lot of like sports psychology books as well for tennis specifically, since I was training for some tennis tournaments, and it's really, really crazy. Or really kind of inspiring, I guess, how much you can work on off the court or outside of the gym.
Yeah, no. So with the agent signing process I was going through, one agent sent me a mindfulness meditation thing, and it was 10 minutes long, and it was focused on your breathing and visualization, and it was crazy. It felt like I was really in the moment, and so I've been trying to work on that stuff where it's being just mentally prepared for, your games and, your shining moment. And also I've been I've been looking into stuff with David Goggins. He's do you know the name?
No, I don't know, but
he was Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, and he was a dude who was like really overweight, and he just turned his life around just through mental toughness and grit. And now he's one of like the world's top endurance runners, and he went from 300 pounds to like 170 pounds. And he's just he's got a lot of crazy good messages, and I've been listening to a lot of stuff he's getting. I'm probably about to buy his book and read that. Really into his message lately.
Yeah. No, I think I might remember who he is now. I think he might have been on the Joe Rogan podcast one time. Because I remember there was a Navy SEAL officer who lost a lot of weight there, and so like again, like the amount of things you could kind of do off the court and everything is pretty fascinating. You mentioned kind of hate week between Iowa and Iowa State. Did you grow up kind of hating Iowa State as well, being in the middle of that rivalry?
I hated them. I've talked about this in multiple interviews around like the Iowa State game is my goal is to win, so all the little Hawkeye fans that are in like high school or middle school, they don't have to go to school and hear it from their Iowa State friends. Right. They go and give them the crap about the game or whatever.
Yeah. Even I'm probably going to just kill any chance of me getting a Michigan Wolverine on this podcast. But even today, when it's Ohio State versus Michigan in football, I'll like whenever I send texts, I'll put like the X instead of the F, just like what the guys do and stuff. So did you feel in your experiences playing against Iowa State, how did those games kind of register with you mentally and emotionally? Was it just really that much amped up?
Oh, it's a different kind of energy that's in those arenas at that time. You're gonna have a sold out arena. You're gonna have 3 million eyes from the state looking at you, and you're gonna have probably 2 million more from ESPN that are on. So it's a huge rivalry. All eyes are on you, and it's it's for bragging rights. It's more than just a non-conference win and loss.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to touch on, because I know you had a really, really good game, pretty crazy stat line where you had 18 points in 18 minutes versus Michigan State. When you have those really, really good games, and for that game particularly, was there anything that kind of stood out to you from a mental side of the game that was different for that game? Or was it the kind of situation where you were just doing the same process and then, the outcome finally came?
Yeah, no, definitely. Especially with that game. I was just coming out of a shooting slump. Early in my senior year, I was shooting like 56% from three. I was just on fire early in the year. And then I missed 20 3-pointers in a row.
Wow.
20. And so I was in the dumps. It was literally the point where like I'd have an open one. I know I'm a good shooter. I got to shoot it. And I'd miss. And I'd like just tell myself, oh, that's number 16. Oh, 17. I was literally just counting them like so that goes along with like the mental side of the game. You can't really focus on how many shots you're missing because then you're more likely to miss your next one. Mm-hmm. And then, the Rutgers game came and I had 2 really big threes in that one. Then it was like Ohio State had a big 3 in that one. And then it was Michigan State. So, I was kind of getting my confidence back. I hit, an early 3 and a layup and I got into foul trouble. I was like, man, like I was like in the groove, like I was going to get it flowing. And the second half, I just kind of erupted and it was awesome.
Yeah. As being in your position, playing the front court in basketball, it's a lot of a really matchup sport, basketball, of course, because it's 5-on-5, and usually you're guarding man on man, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're approaching the basketball game, what's your balance of mindset between you playing your game and imposing that over the other center or power forward, compared to you adjusting your game to what their game is?
Yeah, so definitely, I think. The aggressor almost always wins, no matter what the sport is. When it, that kind of starts for us. It starts 2 to 3 days in advance before the game, just because it's a scouting report, film study, stuff like that. You got to really hammer in on what your main matchup is really good at, and you got to try to impose your will and be and take that stuff away from them defensively, and then also impose your will offensively and do what you do best and get to your spots and make your shots. Definitely, defensively, I always tried to be the aggressor and know that maybe like a great example is with Daniel Oturo. He's super talented if you let him get to his right hand, but if you make him go over his right shoulder. He's still really good, don't get me wrong, but he's not great finishing with his left hand as he was his right.
Yeah.
And so I think when we played Minnesota this year, I did really good jobs at that. Another example is probably Mike Watkins. Mike Watkins at Penn State, super good, super great athlete. But if you're going to beat him, you got to beat him in transition. So that's like stuff that we've looked to do where it's we run certain guys or we double team certain guys certain ways with like Caleb Wesson. Like he was unreal. You got to double team him early and don't let him have any catch and shoot threes. There's just the Big Ten was so deep this year, and there's lists of guys, and you have to focus on one or two things that they aren't as good at instead of the things they're dominant at. You can't let them do the things they dominate at.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. More recently, a lot of the kind of news pieces that have been written kind of tabbed you as one of the most improved players at Iowa, from year 1 to year 4. Mm-hmm. It's pretty obvious looking on the court physically what's improved for you in your game. But in your opinion, what from the mental side of the game has really improved for you over the past 4 years?
Mental side of the game, I think, like I said, the first year I came in, I found out really quickly I wasn't going to be the guy, and I was going to be my role was going to be get everybody else ready to play and not get ready to play. And year 3 and 4, but especially year 4, I kind of knew that I could go out and compete with anybody. It didn't matter who you were. If you were projected to go, in a lottery, I was ready to go and compete against you.
So is that whole confidence factor then, just having the confidence to go out and play your game? Yeah,
big time.
That's something that I personally struggled with a lot at the beginning when playing tennis, because it's such there's such a microscope behind you playing tennis because it's a one-on-one, and I didn't really have a lot of confidence in my game, I guess, hitting my shots and stuff like that. I kind of was overthinking everything. For you particularly, how do you avoid, or how did you get past overthinking every little thing you did in the middle of the game? And I got to imagine it's probably amplified for somebody that's playing for their hometown team, right?
I mean, honestly, this is going to sound crazy, but the biggest way to stop worrying about it is just try to not care what the coaching staff is going to say to you. I mean, multiple guys on our team have just said, like, you know what? If I know it's a good shot and my teammates know it's a good shot, I'm going to shoot it. It doesn't matter if it goes in or not. I hope it goes in. And if, it doesn't matter who shoots it or not, coach is going to get mad if the shot doesn't go in. So, I mean, there was a time where definitely my freshman and sophomore year, I was a little shook to shoot. I was, always looking over my shoulder, making sure I wasn't, going to get yanked or yelled at. And the last 2 years, I definitely played a lot more free.
Mm-hmm. You got I'm pretty lucky, but it's I think one of the greatest moments in a college basketball player's career is to be involved in senior night. And I know for you had senior night this past year. How were those? How tough was it to balance those emotions? I guess because that's got to be quite the heart-tugging moment for you to kind of grow up an Iowa Hawkeye fan and dream of playing for the Iowa Hawkeyes, and then there you are, senior night, being honored in front of an arena full of fans. Yeah, no, it was. I tried to just focus on the game the whole time. Even in like all the interviews beforehand, I was just saying like I'm just going to worry about it when it comes. I'm just going to focus on the game for now. And when it came, there's definitely a lot of emotions that were there. I had, your frame jersey with, your other seniors and coach, and lifted up my jersey at center court, and the place kind of erupted. And there was just a lot of emotions that came with that. There's a lot of pride and thankfulness, and there's a whirlwind of emotions with that. It was unreal, and to do that and then have to go back in the warm-up line and just kind of flush that all and go play a game. That was kind of tough. Yeah. Was that the game where you kind of had like the most, I guess, mental anxiety, or kind of you felt the most flustered maybe before a game, or was there another game that was really on top of that? Maybe Iowa State game, or when you guys made it to the March Madness tournament? I know that would have been pretty emotional. Probably senior night, March Madness, and probably my sophomore year when we played at Iowa State, because I was coming off that first concussion. It was the first time playing at Iowa State, and
it was such a big rival. So I'd say those are the three biggest in my career.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, man, before we wrap up here, I want to get your sense of, for kind of the younger kids out there between like the ages, say like 14 and 18, that are just, have aspirations of playing college ball and going pro after that. What's kind of one thing you would tell them to focus on from the mental side of the game? Obviously, there's a lot of resources out there for the physical side of the game. But I think the mental side of the game is something that a lot of people are starting to focus on a lot more and really value how much it helps performance. So what's one kind of piece of advice that you would give kind of the young kids out there to focus on between the ages like 14, 17?
So I think I have two big things. Is one is control what you can control. There's no point in getting all beat up and mad at your teammates if you throw a really good pass and they miss the shot. There's no point in screaming at the ref, because then you're gonna get teed up or stuff like that. You might as well just go with what's the next best action, and that's something that makes really good players. That they might screw up, but they just do what's the best thing they can do in that moment. And that's really hard. That's something that I struggled with when I was little. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted all the ref to call the perfect game. I wanted my teammates to make all the shots. And that's something that I really struggled with until I was in high school. And then the other one that I'd have is, it's a game. It's meant to be fun, and you don't have to take it so seriously. Even though if you want to do this, you have to take your preparation and your physical stuff seriously. You need to be locked in mentally. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's a game and it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because every game and every call the ref makes, pretty much you see somebody arguing it. I've never seen the ref go and reverse the call, but it just comes with being so emotional, competitive and stuff. And even for me, myself, if I'm at home watching the game, like the referee's not listening to the athlete, they're definitely not listening to me, but I'm still there yelling at the TV. And it's
those are definitely my two biggest mental pieces of advice.
Yeah, man. Anyways, man, I appreciate you taking time today. Again, hope you and your family are staying safe and healthy during this lockdown. And like you said, still lots of things to work on and from the mental side of the game while this is all off. But for me personally, I'm kind of taking this as a bit of like a recharge from sports, because my body was like bruised and battered, and I would refuse to take a day off of sports, and this has kind of forced me to. So there's some silver good lining in it, I guess. But again, hope your family's staying healthy and safe, and we all get through this unscathed.
Yeah, thank you. You too.